Hi folks! In this video I'm going to show you how I made this insert for my purse and tote bags. I think it's fun to have something like this that you can just pull in and out of one bag and move to another without having to move everything piece by piece. So if you'd like to see how I made this, keep watching. Before we get started sewing this project, I wanted to show you what fabrics I'm going to be using on my cutting mats for the maker. So this first fabric is 12 by 21. I'm going to be using this to make the pockets on the outside of my bag. So this is 12 by 21. For the lining of my insert, I'm going to be using one piece 12 by 24. And for the outside of this drop-in insert, I'm going to use one piece 12 by 24, but I've added heavy fusible interfacing to it to give it some body. You can actually add it to the lining also if you prefer and you want it to be a lot more solid. But for my purpose, I feel that just the outside with the heavy interfacing will be enough. So I'm going to get my machine set up, cut these pieces out, and I'll be back to show you what I've done. So now I've got all my pieces cut out with my Cricut Maker. These star patterns are going to be my pockets on the outside. I've drawn seam allowance across each end of them, where I'm going to sew this straight along that seam allowance and make this into a tube. Once it's in a tube shape, I will press it flat, and this gives a little extra body to the pockets that we're going to put on the front or the inside, however you like, of your insert. Those are the pockets, and as I sew and assemble, I will show you what I'm doing as we go along. We have the two outside pieces. You'll notice that these have been cut with openings that will become little handles once we assemble the bag. I should move that out of the way so you can see it better. So once these are pressed in and we'll sew around, these will become little handles so that you can lift the bag in and out of your tote much easier. And we've replicated the same thing for the lining pieces. So you have those cutouts again. And on the lining you can see better the fold lines that I've had my maker draw in, so that we can fold these back out of the way and have them sewn into the bag and a nice clean finish along the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is do all this pressing so that it's ready to assemble. We'll press these also. I did add the fold lines on these pieces also, but unfortunately I put the wrong pen in my maker and it was out of ink, so you don't really see them. But when you do yours, you will see them a lot better if you put in the fabric pen. So I'm going to press all this and get it ready to sew, and I'll be back to show you the next step. So as we continue, you can see that on my lining pieces, I've pressed open the opening for the handle, and I've pressed the tops where I will close the two pieces, the inside and outside together. I've done that for both pieces of the lining. For the pockets, I've sewn a 1/4 inch all the way along, pressed open my seams, and then turned it right side out and formed like a tube that I've pressed together. I've also pressed open my openings for the handle and pressed down the top where I will attach to the lining. Now I'm going to, for the next step, line up my pockets on these front pieces because I'm only putting them on the front. But what you could do if you like a lot of pockets, is put one a little higher and add a second one. You could do that and have multiple pockets on the inside or outside, however you prefer to do it. So we're going to line these up. You don't want to put them too close to the bottom because you are going to be sewing a gusset and you don't want your pockets to roll under the bottom of the insert. So don't put them too close to the bottom. Let's just line these up. And we'll line up our pockets so that they're matched up pretty well when we sew the bag together. There we go. That's about the height I'd like to have them. So I have plenty of room for my gussets on the bottom. So we're just going to, on one side, I think I'm going to do 3 pockets. And on the second side, I'm just going to do half and half. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to do just 2 pockets. I know that my width is 11.5, so I'm going to go to 5 3/4 to find my center. And I'm just going to give myself a guideline to sew along. There we go. And on this one, I'd like to make 3 pockets. So let's say we go, you can do these any width you want, of course. Don't forget, when you sew the bag together, you're going to lose 1/4 inch on the sides. So you don't want to make the pockets too small. If I go 4 inches on this side, and we'll do 4 inches on this side. There we go. So I'm going to sew straight along this seam. First I'm going to attach along the bottom, not the top of course, just along the bottom, and sew straight along the seam to create my pockets. Leave the ends open for now because they're going to be sewn into the bag. Again, straight along the bottom and down my pocket seams. Don't forget to double stitch or back and forth at the tops because you want them to be strong enough not to tear open when you're putting things in and out. And I'll be back to show you what I've done. And we're back. You can see that I've sewn down the center of this panel and across the bottom. I've double stitched down the center so that when my pockets are being used, they're well reinforced. I've done the same to create 3 pockets on this side. And now I'm going to attach my panels together to create the outside of the bag. You want to try to line up your pockets as straight as possible so it looks nice and neat. So we're just going to line up the fabric where we see it. And the top of the bag. I'll just put a couple of clips in there to hold it. And we'll do the same on the other side. Try and line them up nice and straight. There we go. And I'm going to sew, start at the top. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch down the side, another across the bottom, and up the second side. And I'll be back to show you how that turns out before we sew our gussets. So here we are. We've sewn our outside panels together. I used 1/4 inch. I should trim all this before I finish. But let's move ahead. We're going to prepare the gussets at the bottom of the bag. It's a little more difficult because you have the heavy interfacing on it, but we'll get it. Make sure you have your seams nested so that one is folding one way and one the other. Line it up nice and straight. At this point, you can take a fabric pen and draw a 1/4 inch seam if you like, or I'm just going to eye it, so I'll clip these together to hold them while I sew. And repeat the same thing on the other side. Line up your seams, one going one way and one the other. Just going to make sure I have them the same on both sides, or it won't sit very nicely. And I'll just clip that. So I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right along this edge and trim off my excess, and I'll be back to show you the result. And here we are. So my gussets are done for the bottom of the bag, and now I'm going to turn it inside out. We have nothing left to do on the outside at this point. So I'm going to turn it inside out. This size can fit in your extra large totes, and I believe it will fit in the smaller tote also, which is pretty terrific. If you have a large purse that's just got an open inside, I need to press all this again. That's normal when you're using heavy interfacing. It gets a little wrinkly when you turn it inside out. Okay, push all my corners out. I'm going to press this again. I see a thread I need to trim off. There we go. We'll set that aside, and we're going to repeat for the lining of the bag, sewing a 1/4 inch on each side and across the bottom, preparing the gussets just like we did on the outside of the bag, and I'll be back to show you what the next step is. So the lining for my bag is done. I've done the gussets and the seams, and now I'm going to leave it inside out and just drop it right into this bag, this outside of the bag, and line everything up. There we go. This will take a little bit of fussing and placing. You want to put the openings for your handles on the lining and line them up with the outside bag. I'm just going to drop a pin in there. Wow, that's tough with the... There we go. Line this all up. We want it nice and straight. Don't worry about the top at this point. You want to line up the handles. There we go. Do the same on the other side. Fold everything in nice and neat. And line it up. Okay, so while I'll fuss with that at the sewing machine, I'm going to sew around a top stitch all the way around on both sides for the handles to keep these in place. And I'll be back to show you the finish. Okay, so I've sewn around the handle openings to attach the lining to the inside, to the outside of the bag. I didn't do a perfect job on it, but that's okay. This is just a sample. So the next thing that we're going to do is attach the lining and the outside of the bag at the top. So we're going to line up our seams at the side, so fold our lining in and fold our outside in. And I'm going to use Wonder Clips to hold it in place and continue all the way around, just folding things in to make a nice clean finish along the top of the bag. This one is quite small because I only cut it 11.5 inches wide. If I was going to use it for one of the extra large totes, I would definitely make it a lot wider, unless you just want a smaller insert so that you have extra room in the tote for whatever else you need to put in there, like maybe a camera or whatever else you need to put in there. Shopping. Then you might just want to make a small insert so you have room for everything else. I need to press that down again. Okay, so we're going to continue like this all the way around the top of the bag, and then we're just going to sew a nice neat seam all the way around the top to finish it off. So I'm going to get that done and I'll be right back. And here we have it. I've sewn all the way around the top to attach the lining to the outside. I think it's really cute. You could use it alone when you go shopping. Use it as an insert for a bag that doesn't have pockets on the inside. So, and if you like to change your bags often, it's so easy just to keep everything in one bag and put it in and move it to whichever outside bag you're using. So it's a cute little drop-in insert. I need to press it all up to finish it off. We have 3 pockets on one side and 2 pockets on the other side. Great for your cell phone and pen and notepad or whatever you need. So if I was making this for the extra large tote, I would definitely increase it because at the widest point it's just about 11 inches. So I would increase the file maybe up to 14 or 15 inches. So I'd add 3 or 4 inches to the file on the width. The height you're kind of settled on because it is a maximum 11.5 inches on your cutting mat. So I hope you like this insert. I hope you'll make some. Please post pictures if you do. I'd love to see them. And thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel.